Hey guys, tonight, we're crawling under the rough, flea-bitten covers of a world most wouldn't dare dream about. Welcome to the Middle Ages, where beds weren't just uncomfortable. They were miniature biospheres of suffering. Imagine wood frames creaking with every movement, straw-stuffed mattresses crawling with insects, damp rooms thick with mold, and bedfellows that included rats, lice, and whatever else decided to nest beside you. This isn't some dark fairy tale, it's your reality now. You're about to lie down in a space that reeks of mildew, sweat, and unwashed humanity. Sleep tight. Not a chance. You probably won't survive this, so before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where and when you're all listening from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're not a king. You're not a noble. You don't even have a mattress. You're just a tired, overworked peasant trudging back from the fields after 14 hours of grueling labor under a sky that doesn't care if you live or die. Your body aches, every joint, every muscle. Your hands are blistered. The smell of manure clings to you because you worked the land with oxen, and the oxen don't care about etiquette. All you want is to lie down to sleep. Just sleep. But here's where it starts to unravel. Your bed, if you can call it that, is a pile of straw stuffed into a coarse linen sack. Sometimes it's not even in a sack. Sometimes it's just straw on the floor, mixed with yesterday's dust and whatever the dog dragged in. You pick through it, hoping to shake out the fleas and beetles. You fluff it, not because you think it will become soft, but because you're trying to dislodge whatever might be nesting inside. The cottage walls are damp stone and timber suck in the chill of the evening. Moisture clings to everything. You smell mold. It's always there. You've stopped noticing it the way you've stopped noticing the constant itch between your toes or the tickle of lice behind your ear. The thatched roof drips sometimes, especially when the rain's been hard, and you've learned to move your bedding depending on the leaks. Tonight, it's the far left corner. Drier, but closer to the chicken coop. You'll take it. You sit down, bones cracking like dry twigs. The straw rustles beneath you, and instantly you feel the twitch of tiny legs somewhere near your thigh. You slap blindly. Nothing. Just paranoia. Maybe. Probably not. You lie back, trying to shift your weight evenly so that no single piece of straw digs too deep. It doesn't work. You can already feel one poking the small of your back. Another jabs your rib. There's no escape. But that's just the mattress. The sheets are another level of suffering. They're not washed often. Soap is expensive. Firewood to boil water even more so. Most of your bedding is washed once or twice a year, if that. So the linen itches. It's stiff with old sweat and something like grease. When you pull it over yourself, it clings damply. Your legs curl up instinctively, not for warmth, but to avoid the part of the blanket where the mold stains are darkest. Your pillow is a sack of straw, no different from the mattress. Sometimes it's feathers if you're lucky, or if someone slaughtered a goose recently. But feathers attract mites. The pillow is hard, uneven. You punch it once or twice, but it makes no difference. Eventually, you stop trying. Sleep should come easy to someone so tired, but it doesn't. The cold is biting. You tuck your hands under your armpits, trying to trap some heat. Your feet are freezing. You rub them together like flintstones, but they're damp with sweat, and the blanket has gone cold and clammy. You can hear the wind howling through the cracks in the wall. And then, the scratching. It starts low, soft. A tiny sound under the bed or in the thatch above. Mice. Rats. Maybe something worse. You've had a weasel in the rafters before. You've had spiders crawl over your face in the night. Once you woke with a beetle in your mouth. So the sounds keep you alert. One eye always open. Your body lies still, but your mind is awake, counting every scratch, every twitch, every creak of wood. The wooden frame of the bed, if you're lucky enough to have one, groans under your weight, like it resents you. And it might. Beds were passed down through generations, rarely replaced. The joints are loose. The nails rusted. You've hammered it back together with found scraps. It wobbles. One day, it'll collapse completely, and you'll sleep on the floor like your neighbor already does. Sometimes you dream about comfort, about warmth, about clean sheets, soft pillows, and privacy. But the reality is this: you sleep in the same room as your children. Your spouse may be your aging parents. The room smells like smoke from the hearth, like sweat and livestock. There is no silence. Someone is always snoring, coughing, groaning. You learn to tune it out, just like the itching, just like the cold. You have to. Occasionally there's something worse. Bed bugs. They're harder to spot than fleas, but you know they're there. The bites give them away. Red, swollen welts that itch like fire. You scratch them until you bleed, then hope the wound doesn't fester. Infection is real. Death starts small in this age. A scratch, a bite, a chill that turns into fever. The bed, far from a place of comfort, becomes a starting point for decay. You curl tighter, trying to disappear. Maybe you doze off for minutes at a time. Light sleep. Never deep. There's no REM cycle here. No restful restoration. Just survival. Night after night. And then, as if by miracle or exhaustion, you do fall asleep. But it's not peace. Your dreams are fractured. You're running, or falling, or reliving the day's toil. You might talk in your sleep. You might cry out. No one cares. Everyone else is too deep in their own nightmares to notice. The bed doesn't protect you. It doesn't restore you. It barely contains you. And that right there is the medieval truth: you don't lie in bed. You endure it. The morning doesn't come with sunshine. It comes with noise. The rooster crows before dawn, and someone stirs in the shared room, a child coughing. Your spouse muttering a neighbor's foot, dragging across the packed dirt floor as they stumble toward the door to relieve themselves in the cold morning mist. There's no slow wake-up here, no luxurious stretch under warm sheets. You blink into the dimness, the air still heavy with the stale breath of the night before. You ache, not just from the work you've done, but from the bed itself. The mattress has left lines across your back where the straw gathered in lumps. Your hip is sore from pressing against the wooden plank beneath the sagging sack. You stretch your legs only to feel the familiar bite of something tiny and persistent. Another flea, maybe. Probably. Your skin is raw in places where scratching in your sleep opened up yesterday's bites. You shift again. Something crunches beneath your shoulder. A beetle, maybe. You don't even care enough to check. Rising from bed is an act of will. You throw off the linen stiff with dried sweat, and the cold punches your skin. You pull your tunic over your head, rough wool not much better than the blanket, and stomp your feet to force blood back into your toes. You scan the bedding out of habit, looking for new infestations. The straw needs changing. It should be changed monthly, but you don't always have the time. Or the straw. You remember a time once when the mattress was new, when the straw still smelled faintly of summer fields. That was years ago. Now it's more dust than stalks, and the scent is musty moldy. The edges are black with damp where the floor seeps during rainstorms. You tried elevating the bed once with bricks or leftover planks, but it made little difference. The walls weep in this place. So does the ceiling. And sometimes, so do you. You bend to shake out the bedding not because you think it'll help, but because you have to do something. The fleas jump disturbed. You slap at one on your wrist and leave a smear. The sheet has faint brown spots from crushed lice. You try not to notice anymore. In wealthier houses, you've heard the beds are built high. 4-poster canopies with curtains, feather mattresses, and embroidered pillows. You imagine what it must feel like to lie in one soft, warm, clean, maybe even perfumed. Some are stuffed with goose down, others with wool carded and layered for softness. You've never seen one yourself, of course, only heard about them from travelers or priests who spent time in abbeys. To you, they might as well be myth. For nobles, beds are a statement. They're heirlooms. Carved oak inlaid with ivory or gold draped in silk and tapestries. Some even have warming pans filled with hot coals slid between the sheets before bed. You once tried to replicate it. Put a clay pot with embers beneath the blanket. You scorched the cloth and nearly burned the cottage down. That was the end of experimentation. But even for the wealthy, the beds are not sanctuaries. Lice don't care about class. Fleas infest even the finest silks. Royalty scratched just like peasants did, though perhaps more delicately. Entire treatises were written in later centuries on how to avoid bed bugs in noble houses. That's how deep the plague of discomfort ran. You throw open the shutters and let in a sliver of weak light. It cuts through the dust hanging in the air. You see your bed clearly now, a deflated, filthy mass in the corner, sunken and stained. It looks like something died in it. And something probably did. You remember your uncle passing in that bed, feverish and soaked in sweat. He shivered through nights raving about demons in the thatch. When he died, you changed the straw, but not the sack. The smell lingered for weeks. Death was common in these beds. People died in them as they were born in them. Midwives knelt beside them, wiping sweat from brows. Priests whispered final prayers over them. They were the stage for every transition in life, and no one expected comfort. Only familiarity. A final resting place filled with memories both good and grotesque. There are mites in the corners between the mattress and the wall. Tiny, persistent creatures that feed off dead skin. You scratch your arm again involuntarily. The bites are always in threes, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, some say. You smile grimly at the thought. Nothing's ever just one bite. You consider pulling everything apart, airing the straw, boiling the sheets, scrubbing the frame with vinegar or ashes. But there's no time. The field waits. The sheep need checking. The firewood must be gathered before nightfall. And even if you did, the bugs would be back by next week. So you do what everyone does, you live with it. Children don't complain. They don't know any better. You used to curl up beside your siblings' limbs, tangled together like a litter of pups. Shared warmth was the only defense against the cold. When one had lice, everyone did. You remember scratching competitions, digging nails into skin, until your mother slapped your hands away. She used a fine-toothed comb to remove the worst infestations. You winced as it dragged over your scalp. Sometimes she'd coat your hair in lard and tie a cloth around your head for days. It suffocated the lice, sort of. You look at your own child now curled up on their side, small and oblivious. Their mouth is slightly open, a trace of drool soaking the edge of the shared blanket. You gently pull it back over their shoulder, hoping they don't wake cold. The innocence of their sleep is jarring, especially against the backdrop of everything you've just endured. You envy it. But you also remember children didn't always wake. Sometimes they simply didn't. Crushed by exhausted parents in crowded beds, suffocated by blankets, taken by illness in the dark hours. And when they did, the bed became a cradle of grief, not rest. Beds in this age carry memory. Not the memory of sweet dreams, but of nights survived. Of waking up barely to face another day. Each creak of the wood, each worn-out fold in the blanket, tells the story of struggle. Not just yours, but generations. You don't sleep in your own bed, really. You sleep in your ancestors' choices, in their sweat-soaked rituals, in the imprint of everyone who came before you. You run your hand along the frame. It's splintered. Nails protrude where repairs were hastily made. You once tied the joints with rope to stop the wobble. It helped for a while. But nothing lasts long in this climate. Not wood, not cloth, not bodies. You wonder how many more nights you'll endure before you no longer notice the pain. Before the itches become background noise. Before your dreams forget what comfort ever was. Because comfort isn't just rare here, it's dangerous. It softens you, makes you yearn for what you can't have. Better to forget, better to adapt, better to see the bed not as rest, but as pause. A holding space, a place between one hardship and the next. And so you gather your sack of straw, you smooth it down, you fluff it once, watching the dust rise. You place it back where it was corner dry, not too close to the wall, and you know that come nightfall it'll be waiting, not to welcome you, but to remind you. By mid-morning, you've mostly forgotten the bed. The day's rhythm has swallowed you, your back bent in the fields, hands plunged into earth, still slick from last night's rain. Hunger gnaws, the sun climbs, and your skin stings with salt and soil. But somewhere behind your exhaustion, you remember the bed is waiting. Not like a soft return to peace, more like a chore you've postponed. A scratch you can't reach. Because no matter how far you walk or how hard you work, it follows you in memory, the creak of the frame, the scratch of straw against your skin, the scent of mildew baked into every thread. It's not just your place of sleep, it's a part of you now, like the calluses on your hands or the dirt under your fingernails. A silent weight always there. You spot a neighbor unloading bundles of straw from a cart. You eye it with envy. It's fresh golden and dry harvested just days ago. The kind that smells like sunshine and would feel light beneath your shoulder blades. You trade a few words, offer to help unload. Maybe they'll part with a small bundle, enough to stuff under your back, enough to pretend the bed is better. They offer a fistful and you thank them. It's not much, but it's something. By dusk, your body protests every movement. You drag yourself back through the village. Smoke curls from chimneys. Dogs bark half-heartedly. And the closer you get to your cottage, the stronger the knowledge settles time to return to that wretched thing you call a bed. Inside, your child stirs at the sound of the door. Your spouse is already curled under the covers, their shape barely rising and falling. You quietly change into your nightclothes, just another tunic, this one slightly less soiled, and you kneel beside the sack. You open it. The old straw sighs as if it too is weary. You add the fresh handful, mixing it with what's already there. The scent is faint but distinct. For a moment you inhale something not entirely foul. You shake the sack and fluff it gently, hoping to redistribute the weight. The movement sends specks of dust into the air. You cough once and wave them away. Then you ease yourself onto it. It's marginally better, just enough to lull you into thinking it might not be a completely miserable night. But the old straw fights back. One sharp stalk jabs your shoulder blade. Another pokes behind your knee. Still, you let yourself relax. Because this is it. This is all you get. Tonight you try not to think about the lice, but your scalp itches within minutes. You scratch discreetly, trying not to wake anyone. Your spouse shifts beside you, muttering something incoherent. One of the children snores softly. A dog barks outside. The fire in the hearth pops once, then settles into low embers. Shadows flicker across the wall, and your eyes adjust to the dark. This is what darkness means in the medieval world: total surrender. There's no electric hum, no passing cars, only the sound of your own breath and the creak of timber above you. Darkness wraps around your bed like a second blanket, colder than the first. You lie still, staring at the underside of the thatched roof, and your thoughts start to wander. Not because you're relaxed, but because the discomfort is constant and familiar. Your mind floats to rumors you've heard about monasteries where monks sleep on stone floors as penance. About saints who never used beds at all, who wrapped themselves in hair shirts and slept upright in corners, fasting and weeping for their sins. You wonder if they were holier or just too poor to afford a mattress. Some nights you think about the nobility again. They say lords and ladies have beds so high they need stools to climb into them, that they sleep on bolsters of velvet stuffed with down so fine it slips through cloth like mist, that they lie with rose-scented sachets tucked under their pillows and servants to warm their slippers in the morning. You imagine what that must feel like, sinking to a surface so soft it holds your body like water. Sheets clean and smooth, pillows that cradle your neck, a canopy above not to keep out cold, but to filter morning light through silk. But then you remember, even in castles, not everything is golden. You heard about a noblewoman once who died from lice-borne fever despite her gilded bedstead, about a baron whose feather mattress caught fire when a candle fell. That luxury still rots. Mice still chew through silk. Bedbugs still burrow deep no matter how expensive the fabric. It comforts you a little. Misery, it seems, is democratic. Back in your own bed, you try not to move too much. Every shift risks waking a child or jabbing yourself with straw or inviting another avalanche of dust. You can hear the soft clink of a rat somewhere in the wall. You hope it stays there. Last week it got into the bed. You woke to the sound of it scurrying across your legs. You swore, thrashed, and it vanished. You didn't sleep after that. There's also the damp. You feel it in your bones before your skin. It creeps in during the night, seeping through the stone floor and wooden frame until your blanket grows cold. Your breath fogs in the dark. You pull the sheet tighter, but it's thin and smells of old skin. Somewhere mold grows. You can't see it, but your nose knows it's there. Sleep, when it comes, is heavy and strange. You don't dream of floating or flying. You dream of carrying things, baskets, stones, children. Your body never stops. Even in sleep, it toils. You wake unsure if you've rested at all. And in these moments, half awake, half asleep, you understand something that isn't written in any book. The bed in your world is not a place of comfort. It's a measure of resilience. It marks your threshold of tolerance. It's the borderland between waking struggle and unconscious survival. You reach over and touch your child's back, still warm, still breathing. You smile faintly despite the bitter cold, despite the crawl of something on your leg, because you're still here, still in it, still enduring. And that is the only comfort your bed will ever offer. It doesn't welcome you. It simply allows you to return. The seasons change, but your bed stays the same. In summer, the heat turns your straw mattress into a furnace. You lie atop it, slick with sweat, the sheets clinging like a second skin made of damp cloth and regret. Fleas thrive in the warmth, breeding faster, biting more. The straw turns sour faster, too damp from your own perspiration. It ferments beneath you until it smells like an animal stall. You try airing it out, dragging the sack outside, flipping it in the sun. But the breeze carries dust, the chickens peck at it, and by nightfall you're still sleeping in a musty nest of discomfort. In winter, the same bed becomes a trap for cold. The straw compresses with each night's weight, offering less insulation as the weeks drag on. The damp deepens. You layer everything: 2 tunics, a cloak, a patchwork blanket riddled with moth holes, and still your teeth chatter. You curl tighter. Your joints ache, frozen in their sockets. You press your feet to your spouse's legs for warmth, and they grunt, half asleep, half annoyed. There's no central hearth in the bedroom. The fire's in the main room, and its heat barely reaches you. Sometimes you drag your bedding closer to it and fall asleep beside the embers, but in the morning the ash has settled in your hair. Your nights stretch into endurance trials. You stop calling it sleep. You call it lying still. You call it waiting for the dark to pass. The mattress creaks like a warning every time you shift. The wood underneath groans. The legs wobble. Once one collapsed entirely. You propped it up with a stone and a prayer. But it's not just physical discomfort that makes medieval sleep so miserable. It's the fear. Because sleep is vulnerable. And in this age, vulnerability is dangerous. People die in their beds from more than just illness. There are stories whispered over hearths of bandits sneaking into cottages at night, slitting throats while families slept, stealing what little food or coin they had. Of fires sparked by wind-blown embers or overturned candles consuming entire thatched homes while the occupants still dreamed. Of demons, some said, or spirits that sat on your chest and stole your breath. You've heard these tales. You've lived beside the people who told them. You've seen the scorched ruins of cottages that didn't make it. That's why you sleep light. That's why you jolt awake at every unfamiliar sound. That's why you keep a stick by the side of your bed, not because you think it'll save you, but because having it helps you believe you might stand a chance. There's a constant weight in the air at night, not just from fear or discomfort, but from the knowledge that this bed, this space is shared. You share it with your spouse, sometimes with 2 or 3 children. Bodies pressed together, breath-mingling limbs entangled. There's no privacy, no rolling over without brushing someone's skin. You learn to coordinate your shifts. You learn to accept the smell of someone else's sweat as part of the bedding itself. There are nights when someone coughs all through the dark hours, and you lie there wondering if it's just a cold or if it's something worse. The kind of worse that spreads. And if one person soils the bed too sick to move, too weak to warn, it's everyone's bed that suffers. You wash what you can scrub with ashes or vinegar and lay it outside to dry. But the stain remains. The smell lingers. The memory clings like a damp cloth across the mind. You remember when your cousin stayed over once years ago. He had nowhere else to go. You made room in the bed, 4 people instead of 3. That was the week the lice spread. Your scalp itched so fiercely you bled behind your ears. You doused your head with vinegar. You shaved part of your hair in frustration. The rest you coated in pig fat and tied in cloth for 3 days. It worked mostly, but the smell of lard haunted your pillow for weeks. You once heard of someone burning their mattress, entirely tossing it onto the bonfire, watching the bugs scatter like embers. But replacing straw isn't free. Linen isn't free. Even the sack itself costs days of labor. You'd rather suffer than start over, and so you patch. You mend. You endure. Sometimes in moments of strange clarity, you realize your bed is alive. Not metaphorically, literally. It breathes, it hosts, it consumes. It has colonies of life crawling beneath its surface, mites, fleas, maybe a mouse. You've caught them chewing holes in the corners of the sack, nesting in the warmth of your body. Once you crushed one in your sleep. You woke to the feeling of something soft and warm beneath your thigh, blood and fur, and a tiny broken shape. You stared at it for a long time before getting up to clean. The floorboards beneath the bed aren't much better. Cracks wide enough to swallow a coin. Spiders crawl up from the gaps. You've stuffed them with cloth, swept them clean, cursed at them, but still they gape open like the mouth of something waiting. There's no escaping the bed's hunger. Every night you offer it yourself. You don't even know what true comfort feels like. You've never slept in a feather bed. You've never sunk into a mattress so soft it cradles your spine. You've never known the scent of clean linen washed in lavender or dried in the wind. Your dreams of such things are abstract. They come in flashes, tales from travelers, illustrations from old texts, glimpses of something impossible. But even if you were given such a bed, would you trust it? Would you know how to lie still without itching? Would you know how to sleep without bracing yourself against cold or fear or pain? Or would your body reject it, muscles too tense, skin too conditioned to discomfort, mind too alert for danger? This is what your bed has taught you. Sleep is not the opposite of wakefulness. It is a form of submission, a nightly act of surrender despite knowing how unforgiving the bed will be. And so you crawl in night after night. You lie on mold and mites. You pull a sour blanket to your chin. You close your eyes against flickering shadows. And you try earnestly, helplessly, to find rest where there is none. Because this is your life, this is your bed, and comfort is a story someone else gets to tell. Sometimes as you lie there, in the cold silence of another endless medieval night, your mind drifts toward the bizarre rituals people have come to embrace just to survive their beds. You've heard whispers from neighbors, strange tricks passed down from mothers and grandmothers, old wisdom, not written in books, but etched in memory and desperation. Things like stuffing dried herbs into the straw to ward off pests. Lavender, if they could get it more often, wormwood rosemary, or crushed mint, cheap, pungent plants, believed to scare off bugs, and perhaps, if lucky, dull the smell of mold. You tried it once, stuffing in dried rosemary from a traveling peddler's satchel. It didn't work, not really. The bugs still came. But for a few days at least, it smelled like hope. Some households burn bundles of dried sage or mugwort beside their beds before sleep. Not for comfort, nothing so modern as aromatherapy, but for cleansing. For pushing back what they fear lurks in the corners, spirits, illness, bad dreams. The smoke curls through rafters, stings eyes, and leaves a bitter film on every surface, including the bedding itself. You've inhaled it before lying in the dark afterward, eyes watering, telling yourself the ghosts would stay away now. Superstition has grown like moss across the bed frame. A woman once told you to place a knife beneath your mattress to ward off night terrors. Another swore by tying red thread around the bedposts to protect against witches who crawl through keyholes at midnight. You don't believe it. Not entirely. But sometimes in the cold silence after a nightmare, you find yourself groping beneath the mattress just to check that the blade is still there. Then there's the bed prayers mumbled by candlelight or whispered into pillows. Not the formal kind, those spoken in Latin by priests in stone churches, but the desperate kind, keep us safe. Let us wake, spare the baby. This cough, it's a form of communion with the dark, an acknowledgement that every night you close your eyes, you gamble, and all the while the bed remains the same. Crude, infested, unforgiving. The straw inside the mattress sack shifts with every movement, becoming increasingly uneven over time. You've tried layering it with cloth, old tunics, too worn to wear linen scraps, too threadbare to mend, but they bunch beneath you, adding wrinkles and new pressure points. You shift constantly, chasing some magic angle that will make your spine stop aching. It never comes. Your back stiffens with every passing night. You know people who can no longer stand fully upright. You've seen them shuffle through the village bent like question marks. Their beds, they say, crushed them over the years, bent them with sleep, the way labor bent them with work. Children don't complain. They haven't yet learned there's another way. They fall asleep, curled into whatever shape the bed allows. But you've watched them twitch, scratch, cry out in their sleep. You've seen their bites in the morning, the angry red lines where bugs feasted in the dark. One child developed boils from the bites, raw, oozing wounds that wouldn't close for weeks. You boiled cloths, made poultices, prayed over his pillow. The bed remained silent, indifferent. There is no such thing as sleeping alone either. Privacy is a fantasy. Space is a myth. Beds are shared not just by family, but by guests, friends, cousins passing through. A traveler from another village might end up wedged beside you, snoring against your shoulder. Hospitality demands it. There is no guest room, no spare mattress, just a corner of the sack and half a blanket. And with every new body comes a new risk. More lice, more mites, more illness. But saying no is worse than the discomfort. To deny someone a space in your bed is to shame them, to suggest they are unclean. So you share always. You make room. You brace yourself. The more people in the bed, the hotter it gets, which should be a blessing in winter, but it becomes its own punishment. Skin sticks to skin. Sweat soaks into the shared linens. The smell becomes unbearable. You long for space, for distance, for a breath of cool air. But you say nothing, because they're suffering too, and there's nowhere else to go. You've seen what sleep looks like when there's no bed at all. Laborers sleeping in barns on hay. Shepherds curling under cloaks in wet grass beside their flocks. Orphans huddled in churchyards, curled like leaves breathing frost. Even beggars who've traded stories for space in stables. They sleep in fear of hoof and heel in the shadows of snorting beasts. Compared to them, you are lucky. That's what you remind yourself night after night. You have a roof, a wall to press your back against something dry, mostly to lie on. Even if the bugs bite, even if your dreams are shallow, even if you wake feeling more tired than when you lay down. Some of the wealthier villagers have moved beyond straw. Wool-stuffed mattresses, even rarely feather beds. You've heard about those from merchants. A feather bed, they say, conforms to your body. It lifts and holds you. It doesn't scratch. It breathes. But the feathers must be replaced when they rot or mat together. Mites live in the down, and if a feather escapes the seams, it pricks you worse than straw ever could. Even wealth cannot buy a perfect night's sleep. It buys you different problems. So you wonder, is there such a thing as true rest in this world? And then one night something unusual happens. You wake and you feel still. The straw has shifted just right. The air isn't cold. No one is snoring. The bugs must be sleeping too for once. You lie there, eyes open, heart calm. And in that rare moment you realize something odd. You have adapted. Your body has accepted the harshness. Your mind has surrendered. This bed, this pile of mold and straw and sorrow, it has become your sanctuary somehow. Not because it's good, but because it's yours. And that's the strange thing about survival in the medieval world. You don't wait for comfort. You don't dream of better. You just learn to hurt quietly and call it sleep. You remember the first time you truly understood that your bed could kill you. Not with a dagger or fire, but slowly creeping death disguised as rest. It was the winter your mother took ill. She had always been strong, one of those women who could balance a pot on her head, carry a child on her hip, and still tend the goats without pause. But something crept into her chest that year, something thick and wet, a cough that never left, and the bed became her prison. She lay there day and night, curled under every blanket you could find, but the cold never left her. The mattress was damp, the air sour. She shivered even when the fire blazed, and her breath rattled like loose stones in a cup. You tried to air out the bedding during the rare dry spells. You pressed hot bricks to her feet. Nothing worked. When she finally died, it wasn't with peace. It was with that same rattle and that same wetness soaking into the straw below her. You burned the bedding. You couldn't bear to sleep on the same sack. Even after the smell lingered like illness itself had taken root in the wood grain and mold. From that day you began to look at beds differently. You saw them not as places of rest, but as traps where people lay down and didn't get up again. Every time someone complained of chills or night sweats, you felt the dread bloom in your chest. Because once the bed claimed someone, it rarely gave them back. You learned to fear stillness. You moved often during the night, if only to remind yourself you were still alive. You'd flip the straw, stretch your legs, crack your knuckles. And when someone else in the family lay too quietly, you'd reach out in the dark and touch their shoulder just to feel the rise and fall of breath. But the bed kept claiming people. Old ones first, then sickly children. Once a young man who fell ill after working through a storm. He coughed for 3 days and then just stopped. His mother wept over his body, rocking back and forth in the very bed where he'd lain. She refused to move him. She said the bed had taken her son's spirit, and to disturb it was to curse the rest of the family. So he stayed there overnight, stiff and pale, until the priest arrived with incense and holy water. That bed never got used again. They turned it against the wall like a shamed thing, then later chopped it into firewood. You were there when the mattress burned. The straw inside popped and cracked like tiny bones. The smell was awful, and yet, despite all this, every night you returned to your own bed. The alternative is worse. No one wants to sleep on cold stone or packed earth exposed to wind or rats. The bed is bad, but the floor is worse, and the streets unthinkable. You try to make it better. You check for lice with a comb you carved from bone. You sift through the straw once a week, pulling out the worst bits and adding what you can find. You patch the linen when it tears, though your stitching is poor. You leave the shutters open when the sun shines and drag the whole mess outside to let the breeze do its work. Sometimes it helps. The linen smells faintly less sour. The straw feels less lumpy. You even crush some dried mint and scatter it inside just to pretend it makes a difference. But deep down you know the truth: this bed will never love you back. It isn't designed for comfort. It's designed for survival, and even that barely. There's talk among the older folks that sleep itself used to be different. That people once slept in 2 parts, first sleep and second sleep, with a waking hour in between. A sacred pause, they say, when prayers were whispered and dreams interpreted. Some still live by it. They rise after midnight, sit by the fire, speak softly, then return to bed. You've tried it a few times, but all you ever feel is bone-deep fatigue. You can't imagine having energy in the middle of the night. Not when the day drains every last drop from you. But the idea lingers. That sleep was once gentler. That the bed was once a quieter place. You think of the castles, the manors, the monks in their tidy cells. Even the abbots with their high beds and prayer-stained linens. Do they suffer like you do? Do they itch? Do they feel the mold creeping up the bedposts? Or have they carved out little islands of warmth and silence amid the chaos of this world? Maybe. Maybe not. You've heard of monasteries where beds are simply wooden planks, a form of penance, a way to mortify the flesh. That sounds awful, but at least there's honesty in it. No pretense, no false promise of softness, just wood and bone. Your bed lies to you every night, pretends to offer relief, then betrays you with a splinter, a flea bite, a damp spot that chills your spine. Still, you return to it, because what choice do you have? You wonder sometimes if the next generation will know better, if your children will sleep easier, if they'll learn how to build something more than this lumpy sack and bug-riddled blanket. Or will they inherit it all, bed discomfort and quiet dread, like a family curse wrapped in linen? You've seen it happen already. Your oldest is nearly grown. They've started mending their own bedding. They fluff the sack just like you do. They scratch the same spots behind the knees. One night you woke and saw them sitting upright, scratching and mumbling in their sleep. It chilled you more than the wind ever could, because the bed is claiming them, too. And so you begin to understand the bed isn't just a thing. It's a legacy, a slow inheritance of suffering passed down like a name. Each generation reshaping it, patching it, but never escaping it. And as you lie down once more in that creaking, crawling, half-rotting place you call rest, you whisper, not a prayer for peace, but a plea. Let this not be the end of me. Not tonight. Not yet. There's a strange kind of numbness that takes over when you've lived with discomfort long enough. You stop reacting to it. The first time a flea bite woke you, you scratched until your skin broke and bled. Now you just roll over. The first time your straw mattress turned moldy and smelled like wet sheep, you gagged and dragged it outside, hoping the wind would purify it. Now you barely notice. Your body has absorbed the truth. Your mind gave up. Resisting your bed will never be clean, never be warm, never be safe. But it will be there. You think of it sometimes as a beast. Not in a fairy tale way. There's nothing magical about it, but as a thing with a will of its own. A creature that groans under your weight, shifts beneath you, and always leaves a mark. You don't lie in it so much as offer yourself to it. It accepts you reluctantly. Sometimes in the middle of the night, your dreams blur into waking, and the bed does seem alive. The straw shifts on its own, the sack breathes with you. You see faces in the folds of the linen. You hear voices in the creak of wood, like the whispers of everyone who ever died here. They say nothing clear, just the same moaning wind and thump of your own heartbeat. And yet, in a twisted way, the bed gives you something. Not comfort, not rest, but rhythm. A routine of misery so consistent, so predictable, that it becomes a kind of anchor. No matter what the day brings, hail, hunger, hard labor, you know where it ends. Right there. In that same sagging corner beneath the window that doesn't shut properly under the blanket, that smells faintly of mildew and smoke. There are nights when the weather turns so bitter even your teeth chatter in your sleep. You wake to find your toes numb, your fingers stiff. You curl tighter, but it doesn't help. You've heard of people freezing to death in their sleep. It's rare but not impossible. The old, the very young, they don't always make it through the harshest winters. You press your hand to your child's chest, feeling the slow rise and fall. Still breathing, still warm enough. You curl closer and let the scratchy blanket pull tighter around you both, ignoring the itch and the smell. The straw mattress isn't just uncomfortable, it's dangerous. Old straw molds quickly, especially in damp climates. Spores rise with every movement, settle into your lungs, your sinuses. You wake coughing some mornings not from illness, but from breathing in your own bed. You've known men whose lungs rotted from years of this. They blamed the weather, but you've seen the black bloom in the bottom of the mattress sack. You've touched it with your own fingers, soft, spongy, alive. Still, what choice do you have? Some try to build frames to lift the mattress from the floor. You did too once. 4 planks and a handful of nails. It worked for a while, less damp, fewer rats, but the wood warped the legs, wobbled, and soon you were tilting in your sleep. You woke one night to a crash as one corner collapsed. You cursed, dragged the whole mess off, and slept on the floor for 3 days until you could fix it. And sleeping on the floor was worse. The cold climbed into your bones like a second skin. You heard everything, every mouse, every footstep outside. The floor made your bed look like luxury. You never tried it again. Sometimes you wonder what it must be like to sleep without fear. To lie down and not worry about what you'll wake up to or whether you'll wake up at all. The thought is so foreign, it feels absurd. Peaceful sleep is for saints and kings, for those born with silks and guards and goose-feather pillows. Not for you. For you, sleep is a battleground, and the bed is the terrain. When illness comes, the bed becomes something else entirely. A prison, a coffin in waiting. You've lain in bed with fevers before burning, shivering, delirious. The mattress sucks the sweat from your skin and keeps it until the straw inside becomes sodden heavy. You shift constantly, trying to find a dry patch, but there's none. The sheet clings like wet paper. The pillow stinks of your breath. And in your worst moments, you wonder, will I die here like my mother? It's not just sickness, injuries too. You once twisted your ankle in the field and spent 3 days in bed, unable to walk. The mattress didn't help. It offered no support, no relief. Your back stiffened, your hip bruised from where it pressed against the floor beneath. You emerged from that rest more sore than before. The irony is cruel. Your only place of supposed healing makes you worse. But the strangest part, perhaps, is that you begin to love it anyway. Not because it treats you well, but because it's yours. A constant in a world of uncertainty. You know every creak of the frame, every knot in the wood, every corner where the straw gathers. The smell is as familiar as your own breath. It's a misery you've memorized. Others try to comfort you. They say, at least you have a bed, and they're right technically. Many don't. Some sleep sitting up. Some sleep outside. Some are too poor even for straw. You remind yourself of that when the fleas wake you, when the mold creeps close to your mouth, when the blanket itches so badly you want to scream. You have a bed. You have something. And that something, however foul, is what gets you through. Because in the medieval world, the definition of comfort isn't softness or quiet or sleep without dreams. It's simply surviving another night. With breath in your lungs, skin unbroken, body mostly intact. And in that light, your bed, your filthy, sagging, bitter excuse for a bed, becomes something sacred. Not because it deserves reverence, but because you do. You sometimes wonder what it would feel like to fall asleep without bracing for pain, to stretch out without hitting a knotted clump of straw or rolling into a cold patch of damp fabric. What would it be like to lie down and feel nothing, no bite, no splinter, no bruise pressing against bone? You can't even picture it clearly anymore. Your body flinches at shadows of discomfort that haven't arrived yet. You shift before you feel the jab. You scratch before the itch begins. You've become a reflex trained by 1,000 broken nights, and yet you carry on. Your bed, such as it is, has aged with you. It's not made of oak or even well-seasoned pine. It's likely fir or willow, cheap and soft, already warped in places. When it was first put together, who knows how long ago it might have stood straight. Now it leans. One leg is shorter than the others. You shoved a folded scrap of cloth under it to steady the frame. The joints creak when you breathe too loudly. You're half convinced the entire thing might collapse one night, trapping you beneath its tired frame like a coffin lid. The mattress sack is older than your youngest child. You've repaired it so many times the stitches crisscross like a spider web. You know each one. You know which stitches hold and which are fraying. You run your fingers over them sometimes, not in affection, but in wary calculation. If that one breaks, the straw will spill. If this one goes, you'll have to spend hours patching it, if you can even find cloth. And straw isn't easy to come by. You don't always have fresh stalks to replace the old. Sometimes you reuse what you can, beating it clean with a stick, sifting through for dry bits, scraping off mold with a knife. It's an act of desperation, not maintenance. Even the rats wouldn't nest in what you're lying on. The bedspread, if it can be called that, is a patchwork of everything old and discarded. Bits of dyed wool linen too thin for shirts, the fraying corner of a sack once used for oats. All stitched together in shapes that don't match by hands too tired to care. The colors have faded. The scent is that of the hearth, the fields, the body. You pull it up at night and breathe it in because it's all you have. You try not to sleep directly on the wood. You've done it before when the straw was too far gone, or when you were waiting to dry a new batch. It's worse than the floor. Cold, hard, unforgiving. Your back hums with pain the next morning. You limp for days after. That's when you understand that even the worst bed is better than no bed at all. Even the mold and bugs and rot are easier to endure than the ache of bare boards against spine and hip. You've watched the seasons change through that tiny crooked window beside your bed. In summer, sunlight creeps in early and fills the air with dust. The warmth tricks you into thinking sleep might be easier. But the fleas multiply faster in heat. You wake with a line of bites across your stomach, your back, your neck. You've found them in your eyebrows. You've found them in your ears. In winter, that same window becomes your enemy. The draft whistles through the cracks in the frame, sliding like fingers beneath your blanket. Your breath rises in white clouds. You pull the covers higher, bundle yourself like a corpse, and try to trick your body into forgetting the cold. But it never does. Not really. Sometimes, though, there's a strange comfort in the routine. You know what the night will bring. You know what part of the bed to avoid. You know which patch of straw is safest. You know how to wrap the blanket to avoid the worst of the cold. You've adapted. That's the real medieval skill, not resilience, but adaptation. Because if you don't adapt, you break. You know people who broke. Old Jacob, who started sleeping, sitting up, leaning against a wall, too sore to lie down anymore. He'd mutter about the bugs, the rats, the things that moved under the mattress. Then one day, he stopped sleeping altogether. He just sat there night after night, staring into the dark, whispering to someone no one else could see. He died in his chair. No one moved him for hours. When they did, they found bite marks on his neck, not animal ones. Insect. They say he'd been feasted on for days. And Marta, she used to sing lullabies to herself in bed to chase away the fear. You heard her voice floating out into the night, soft and trembling. But her mattress caught fire one night, a candle knocked over by the wind. The straw went up fast. By the time anyone reached her, the fire had done its work. All that was left was the iron bed frame and a curl of smoke. That smell never left your nose. You try not to think of those stories. But you do every night, when the wind howls and the bed creaks and the straw rustles beneath you. You press your hand to your chest, feeling your heart beat, proof you're still here. You pull the blanket tighter, knowing it won't warm you. And you turn your head just enough to hear the breath of your child beside you. Shallow but steady, still alive, still breathing. That's all a bed gives you in the end, a place to count the living. And sometimes a place to remember the dead. You'd laugh if it didn't hurt. Because the idea of a good night's sleep is a joke in your world, a cruel, impossible phrase. Sleep is not good. Sleep is not restful. Sleep is not even sleep, it's just time passing. Your body losing the fight to stay awake. You close your eyes anyway. Because what else is there to do? This is your rest. This is your reward. A sack of straw. A crawling, creaking, moldy monument to human endurance. And still, somehow, you thank it. Not because you love it, but because it hasn't killed you. Yet. There are nights when sleep doesn't come at all. You lie there with your eyes open in the dark, staring into the ceiling's shadowed thatch, your mind more awake than your aching body. The straw beneath you crackles every time you shift. The blanket, damp with the night's chill, clings to your legs like wet leaves. Someone snores across the room. The fire's gone out. The cold creeps into your bones, and your thoughts begin to unravel. That's when the memories come. Not sharp, not clear, but soft-edged and heavy like the air in a room that hasn't been aired in weeks. You remember nights from childhood when the bed felt like a nest. It wasn't any cleaner back then, or any warmer, but you didn't know better. You slept with your siblings, stacked like spoons, giggling in the dark, until your mother hissed at you to be quiet. You'd fall asleep with someone's elbow in your side, someone's feet pressed to your shins, and it didn't matter. It was warmth. It was togetherness. There was comfort in not being alone. Now, years later, you're the one hissing at your own children. You feel the same frustration your mother must have felt. You hear your own voice echo hers, short-tired, resigned. The bed hasn't changed. Only you have. You've gone from child to caretaker, and still the same straw sags beneath your back. You used to dream once. Wild, vivid dreams. Riding horses. Flying. Watching the moon sink into a sea of stars. Now your dreams, when they come at all, are muted. You dream of walking, of labor, of lifting things. Dreams so dull they feel like work. You wake up as tired as when you lay down. And there's always the itch, the unending, cruel itch. You scratch in your sleep, sometimes long, slow drags of your nails down your legs, your arms, your ribs. You've woken with blood under your fingernails or fresh scabs where the skin gave way. You don't even remember doing it. The fleas have colonized you. You live with them like tiny roommates who never pay rent. You hate them, but they win every night. It doesn't help that you know too much. You've spoken with the old healer, heard her stories. She says bugs live for months in the folds of fabric in the seams of the mattress sack. She once showed you a louse under a magnifying glass, a grotesque little creature with legs like needles and a mouth built for piercing. You couldn't sleep that night. Every rustle in the straw felt like legs on your skin. You tried washing everything once. built a fire, boiled water, scoured the sheets with soap root, hung them to dry on the line, prayed for sun. For a single night, the bed felt almost clean. Almost. But the relief didn't last. The bugs returned. The damp crept back in. The straw still molded. The illusion cracked like old plaster. And then there are the nights of dread. The ones that come without warning. You're exhausted beyond exhaustion, and yet your mind refuses to let go. You lie still, eyes closed, body aching for sleep, and nothing happens. The world is quiet, but inside you it roars. What if someone breaks in? What if the roof gives way? What if that cough your child has is something worse? You try to calm yourself. You try to pray. But even prayer feels heavier than it should. You mouth the words, familiar ones, the same your mother whispered to you, "Keep us safe tonight. Let us rise tomorrow." But the silence after is long and empty, and the bed is no help. It's too alive. It shifts. It groans. The wood creaks like an old voice. You know the frame's going. You've reinforced it twice, but the joints still loosen. One day it'll collapse entirely. Maybe while you sleep. Maybe with someone still in it. You think of that too. Of the family down the road who woke one morning to find their grandmother trapped beneath the fallen frame. She hadn't cried out. They said she died quietly. You've told yourself you'd rebuild the bed. Tear it apart. Start fresh. But where's the time? Where's the wood? Every day is survival. Every night is repair. You fix what you can, delay what you must, and lie down again on the same sagging bones of this cursed structure. And still, somehow, you envy it. The bed doesn't care. It doesn't worry about anything. It doesn't feel the cold. It doesn't dread dawn. It just waits. It accepts you, and every night you return to it like a moth to flame. Because it is yours. Because it is the only place in your world that's both always familiar and always slightly different. The straw settles in new ways. The chill strikes different spots. The bugs migrate across your body like nomads of the dark. You've become part of the bed in a way. Your sweat has soaked it. Your skin has flaked into it. Your blood is on its seams. You wonder how many nights you'll lie here before the bed claims more of you than the world outside ever did. Some nights when sleep finally does take you, it's not restful. It's more like sinking, like being pulled downward into a soft, rank grave. You don't resist it. You just let it happen. Because it's better than lying there awake, counting the seconds, the fleas, the breathless thoughts. And when you wake, if you wake, you lie still for a long time. Listening. Feeling. Checking if you've survived another round in the ring. If your bones still move, if your skin still burns, if your breath still fogs in the cold morning light. You rise slowly, not out of habit, but out of necessity, because the bed is not a refuge. It's a reminder that even rest can rot, and even sleep in this world comes with a cost. By now, you've stopped expecting anything different. Your body has mapped itself around the bed's discomforts. There's a small dip near the middle where the straw always thins first, and your back naturally curves to accommodate it. Your right shoulder presses against a knot in the wooden frame, but you've learned not to lean into it too much. Your legs know where the coldest corner of the blanket falls, so they curl inward before they ever get there. It's a choreography of fatigue. Every night, the same grim dance. And still sleep is never guaranteed. Tonight, your youngest has a fever. They're bundled beside you, sweating and shivering, their breath raspy. You've given them willow bark and cool cloths, but all you can really do is wait. You place your palm against their forehead and feel the fire beneath the skin. The bed cradles them just as it cradled your mother and your brother and others whose names you no longer speak aloud. You pretend not to think about what this bed has witnessed. You pretend not to remember who it's claimed. The room is silent, except for the child's breathing and the occasional snap from the hearth down to its last glowing embers. You're afraid to move too much, afraid you'll wake them. The blanket barely covers you both, and you're sharing what little warmth your bodies can generate. Your feet are ice. Your skin itches. But you stay still because this moment matters more than your comfort. The straw beneath your child is damp now. Fever sweat thick and sour. You'll need to change it tomorrow, assuming there is a tomorrow. You've already picked out the least moldy bundle in the shed. You know exactly how many hours it'll take to beat it clean and how your hands will sting when it's done. But you don't care. You'd change the sack every day if it meant your child would wake up smiling again. There are moments, brief ones, when you almost forget the filth. When the bed becomes a place of closeness, your spouse breathing evenly beside you, a child's hand resting lightly on your arm. In that fragile space, the bed feels like a cocoon, not a curse. It still smells of damp cloth and mildew, but it also smells like bodies you love, like life, however weary. But those moments are rare. More often, the bed is a battleground. You've rolled over onto bugs. You've swatted fleas only to find new bites by morning. Once a centipede crawled across your chest, and you woke screaming. You crushed it under your fist, and the mess soaked through the sheet. You couldn't bring yourself to clean it until sunrise. There are creatures that live in the thatch above your head, too. Mice, mostly. Sometimes birds, occasionally worse. You've heard scratching, even soft chirping, but you've also heard heavier movements. Once a weasel fell into the room, landing on the bed and thrashing in your blanket before you managed to shove it off. You didn't sleep at all that night. And yet, despite everything, your bed is still better than nothing. You've seen the beggars who sleep on stone, travelers curled under carts, children huddled in barns, teeth chattering through the night. You might not have comfort, but you have shelter. You have something to lie on, even if it's crawling with life. The wealthy, of course, sleep differently. You've heard stories. The manor down the road has beds draped in velvet filled with down. They warm bricks in the fire and slip them between their sheets before bed. Servants air the linens daily and dust the frames with sweet-smelling powders. You can't imagine such extravagance. You can't even picture what it would feel like to lie on softness to sink into something instead of balancing on it. What must it be like to fall asleep without fear? But then again, even the nobility aren't immune. You know that. You've heard of lice in the robes of kings, of queens who bathed in rosewater, yet scratched their scalps raw. A bed might cost a fortune, but it doesn't make you invincible. You wonder sometimes what the bed will be like when you're old, if you make it that far. Will your bones tolerate this straw and wood? Will you sleep in the same spot until you mold into it? Will you lose the ability to rise from it on your own? You've seen it happen. The old don't so much sleep in their beds as dissolve into them. And then when they die, the bed becomes part of the mourning. People gather around it. The priest blesses it. The body is laid out upon it, washed and dressed and wrapped in linen before being taken to the church. And then the bed is scrubbed or burned or turned to the wall in silence. Another cycle begins. Another body eventually lies down in its place. Sometimes you think about your own death. Will it happen here? In this sack of straw beneath this sagging roof? Will you close your eyes one night just like any other and simply not open them again? You don't fear death, not exactly. You fear dying slowly. You fear being trapped in this bed, feverish and helpless, while the mold creeps closer and the fleas feast one last time. And yet, if you could choose where to die, it would still be here. Not because it's comfortable, not because it's clean, but because it's yours. Because it has held your body through every stage of exhaustion, through every shiver, every prayer, every nightmare. Because it's seen all of you, the aching, the bleeding, the laughing, the weeping. And maybe that counts for something. The bed doesn't care about your suffering, but it bears witness to it. And in a world like this one that might be the closest thing to love you'll ever get, morning breaks slowly through the cracks in the shutter, not with golden light, but with a dull gray haze that barely warms the room. You blink against the cold, your body stiff, your arms pinned beneath the blanket, and a child who's rolled halfway on top of you. Your first instinct is to stretch, but you know better. Stretching leads to pain. The straw has shifted again, and the ache in your lower back tells you it did so hours ago. You didn't sleep, not really. You simply faded in and out of discomfort until daylight forced you to rise. You lift yourself slowly, careful not to wake the child. Your joints pop. You've slept in a twisted position again, hip awkwardly tucked, neck cranked sideways. You feel older than you are. Some mornings you wake and wonder if you aged a year overnight. The bed doesn't just rob you of sleep, it robs you of youth. You reach up to rub your eyes, then scratch at your scalp. The lice are back. Not that they ever left. The bedding is wet again. You touch the mattress sack and feel the weight of moisture pressed into the straw. Whether it's from sweat, a leaking wall, or the child's accident, you're not sure. It doesn't matter. You'll have to drag it outside and flip it. Again. You already know there's no dry straw left in the shed. You glance toward the window and calculate the weather. It hasn't rained yet, but the air is heavy, the clouds low and yellowed. If you move quickly, you might get the bedding into the wind before the downpour begins. But the thought of lifting that heavy, soggy thing makes your knees throb. Still, you go through the motions. Outside, you beat the mattress sack with a stick. Straw and dust puff out in little clouds. You feel a prick of embarrassment even though no one is watching. You're not the only one with filth in your bed, but shame clings just as tightly as mildew. You flip it, prop it on a fence post, and watch the steam rise as the weak morning sun tries to do its work. Back inside the bed is reduced to its bare frame a warped wooden skeleton. You see it clearly now, the way it leans the cracks along the rails, the rusted nails sticking out where they shouldn't. You wonder how many more nights it will last before collapsing entirely. You've reinforced it with twine, replaced slats with scrap wood, shoved bricks beneath the posts. You've postponed its death a dozen times. But you know its days are numbered. You also know you'll probably be the one to die before it does. Still, there's something about seeing it like this, exposed and ugly, that makes you pause. It's not just a place to sleep. It's been a cradle, a sickbed, a deathbed. It's where your children were born. It's where you and your spouse have argued and held each other and whispered things you wouldn't say in daylight. It's where you laid through sickness, where you healed, where you didn't. You suddenly remember your wedding night, the nervous laughter, the awkward silence, the way the bed creaked beneath unfamiliar movements. You remember thinking, this is it, not out of disappointment, but out of stunned reality. You had imagined something softer, cleaner, more private. Instead, it was this same lumpy sack in this same crooked corner with the same smell of mildew and smoke. And yet that night is still yours, just like the others. There's no separating memory from this bed. It's soaked up every version of you, and it's the same for others. You've seen neighbors carry out their beds on stretchers to dump them, so infested, so spoiled they can't even salvage the wood. You've watched them burn the straw in their yards, shaking their heads while bugs leapt from the flames. And then they start over new sack, new straw, same misery. You wonder what it must be like to sleep in a place that's new, fresh, unfamiliar. To lie down in a room that doesn't smell like your past. Would it feel liberating or would it feel wrong? Because despite all the filth, there's comfort in familiarity. The mold is yours. The creaks are yours. The stains, the holes, the worn patches, they belong to you. And that's something the wealthy, for all their down and velvet, will never understand. Their bedding changes with the seasons. Their linens are washed weekly. Their mattresses are replaced before they wear through. But nothing of them remains in their beds. You, on the other hand, have left a part of yourself behind every night. You think of your children again. One day they'll build their own beds. They'll gather straw stitch sacks, hammer together frames from scavenged wood. Maybe you'll help. Maybe you'll just watch, too stiff and tired to bend. And you wonder, will they curse their bedding the way you have? Or will they too come to love it in that bitter, resigned way that only poverty teaches? You hope they'll build something better, something warmer, something safer. But hope is dangerous. It invites disappointment. And still you can't help it. You reach for the dried mattress sack and carry it back inside. It's not fully dry, but it's drier than it was. You lay it back on the frame and smooth it out. The straw rustles beneath your hands. You pull the patchwork blanket over it. One corner catches on a nail and you tug it free. It's ugly. It's ruined. But it's yours. And tonight you'll return to it. Like you always do. Not because you want to, but because there's nowhere else to go. You don't even notice the smell anymore. That damp, earthy stench that clings to the mattress, the blanket, even your own skin. It's simply background now, as much a part of your life as the smoke from the hearth or the muck on your boots. Others might wrinkle their noses if they stepped into the room, but you've breathed it in for so many nights that it's become invisible. And that's the terrifying part. The bed in all its filth becomes normal. You find yourself defending it sometimes, if not out loud, then in your own thoughts. When someone complains about their straw poking them, you catch yourself thinking, at least mine still holds together. When someone grumbles about lice, you shrug. What else did they expect? You've learned how to live with all of it, to adapt, to stop dreaming of a better sleep, and instead simply endure what's possible. The line between coping and surrender blurs. You've seen that surrender in the eyes of others. There was an old woman in your village, Isolde, who hadn't left her bed for 3 winters, not because she couldn't walk, but because she no longer saw the point. She ate there, relieved herself. There lived her last days buried beneath 5 tattered blankets and a sack of rotting straw. You brought her soup once. The stench inside that room nearly knocked you over. But she didn't flinch. She just smiled, grateful for the company. She died in that bed, of course. And when they removed her body, they had to burn everything, the mattress, the frame, even parts of the floorboards beneath. It was too soaked in death, too steeped in time. And still you don't judge her, because deep down you understand. When you spend enough nights in a bed like this, it starts to feel like the only safe place in the world, even when it's killing you. It's a strange contradiction. You fear the bed, but you also trust it. You trust its creaks, its cold spots, its usual wrongness. You don't trust new beds. When you've slept in another's home on a guest sack of straw, or a strange mattress in another cottage, you've lain awake half the night, heart racing, limbs tense. You missed your own discomfort. You missed the sharp poke in your back that told you were home. That's what this bed has become, a familiar misery. Predictable. Comforting even in its cruelty. You'd never say that out loud, of course. It would sound mad. But you feel it each night when you crawl under that thin patchwork sheet and settle into the groove your body has carved over countless restless nights. You always settle into the same spot. It's the driest corner, the least collapsed section. Your back knows it instinctively. The wood beneath sags just enough to support your shoulders, but not too much to strain your spine. You've adjusted the straw there 100 times, pulling from one end, stuffing in more from another, and shaping it like clay. The bed, in a way, has molded itself around you. You sleep in its shadow now. You dream in its shape. Even when you leave it on the rare nights you spend elsewhere, or when you're too sick to sleep at all, you feel its imprint on your body. Like a bruise. Like a memory. You've even named it, though you'd never admit it out loud. Old lump. It's half joke, half superstition. You mutter to it sometimes when you lie down. Not tonight, lump, you whisper. Let me sleep. You know it can't hear you. But the ritual matters. It feels like asking permission, like acknowledging the power it holds over your night. And power it does have. Because in this world, the bed is more than a place to sleep. It's a mirror. It reflects who you are, how you live, what you can bear. It shows you your own poverty every night. It whispers, this is what you get. And yet, in spite of all that, it also tells another story. A quiet, stubborn one. A story of survival. You've lain here through illness, through grief, through hunger and cold. You've welcomed new life here and mourned death. You've fought bedbugs and mold and the slow rot of wood. And still you lie down night after night, daring to sleep. That matters. It might not be glory. It might not be comfort. But it's something. Some nights when the wind is quiet and the house is still, you lie with your eyes open and think about what it means to keep sleeping in a world like this. Not just to survive, but to lie down knowing what waits for you and to do it anyway. It's not courage exactly. It's not stupidity either. It's something in between. Maybe that's all anyone ever has. And maybe that's enough. You shift beneath the covers, feel the straw crinkle, hear the mattress groan. A flea bites your ankle. Your fingers find the patch behind your knee that always itches. Your shoulders sag into the wood. The blanket barely covers your chest. But you close your eyes because you have a bed. Because the world outside is worse. Because even if it doesn't love you back, your bed has not let you go. Not yet. There's something deeply humbling about lying awake in the dark, wrapped in threadbare cloth, and realizing that the most intimate space in your world is also the most unforgiving. Your bed knows you better than anyone. It knows your weight the way your hips press deeper than your shoulders. It knows your nightly twists, the spots you avoid, the ones you nestle into without thinking. It has absorbed your sweat, your tears, your blood, your breath. And unlike any person in your life, it never leaves. But it also never forgives. You don't talk about your bed with others. Not in detail. It's not that there's shame in its filth, though there is if you're honest, but that everyone already knows. Everyone's bed is a version of yours. Some are worse, some slightly better. But none are clean, none are soft, and none are sacred. There's a kind of silent agreement in the village beds are not for bragging. You don't describe the stains or compare who has more fleas. You just nod when someone says, "Didn't sleep well last night." It doesn't need more explanation. But sometimes you wonder, what if it did? What if people told the truth? What if they said, "I dreamed of choking and woke to a rat chewing a hole in the blanket"? What if they admitted, "I don't remember what it feels like to sleep without pain"? What if they confessed, "My bed is making me sick, but I have nowhere else to lie down"? The silence is not just social, it's protective. Naming the bed's misery out loud gives it more power. So you keep it tucked inside with the rest of the night's aches. Even when you clean, the silence stays. Today you've decided to scrub. Not because the bed deserves it, but because you've reached your limit. The itching is worse. The stench is heavier. So you haul the bedding out again, dragging the sack across the floor. You're not even mad, just tired. You empty the straw. What spills out is no longer golden. It's gray, black in places, sticky. Mold has taken over. You knew it was bad, but not this bad. You don't even bother sorting. You dump it all into the fire pit and watch it burn. The smell is thick, choking. Your eyes water. The smoke curls into the sky, filled with the ghosts of hundreds of nights. You sit on a stool while it burns, sack in your lap needle and thread in hand. You patch again, new squares over old ones, each stitch a small act of resistance. You hum to yourself, not because you're happy, but because it keeps your mind from drifting to what you're stitching back together. When the sack is whole, you refill it with fresher straw. Not new, there's never truly new straw, but newer, drier. You beat it clean as best you can, swatting it with a branch until your arms ache. Then you bring it inside and rebuild the bed. It's a ritual now, like tending a wound, like repairing your dignity. The mattress looks the same, but it feels different, slightly. Enough to trick you into hope. You smooth the blanket over it and sit. The straw rustles with less complaint. The smell is more hay than mildew for now. Tonight you'll lie down again. You'll find the spot your body remembers. You'll stretch out and see if the new straw presses differently against your back. You'll breathe through your nose and wait for sleep, knowing it may not come. And even if it does, there will be dreams. There always are. You rarely talk about those either, but you remember them. The bed makes sure of it. The worst are the ones where you sleep in comfort, deep, gentle dreams, where you lie on a bed so soft it sighs beneath you. The sheets are white. The air is clean. No fleas, no mold. just silence and warmth and rest so deep you weep in your sleep. Then you wake tangled in your patchwork blanket, skin itching, and the memory of that softness vanishes like mist. You open your eyes to a ceiling made of warped boards and shadows. You lie still, aching with the cruel trick your own mind played on you. Those dreams are the most dangerous. They remind you that better exists, and you can't afford to know that. Not here. Not now. You've learned not to hope for better sleep. You hope instead for fewer bites, for less damp, for no new stains on the blanket, for a quiet night without weasels or wind or sickness. And when you get those things, it's enough. That's what the bed has taught you how to redefine enough. Enough is not clean. It is not soft. Enough is dry-ish, bite-free, unbroken, briefly warm. Enough is surviving the night without waking to blood on your skin or tear in your throat. And if you can do that, if you can lie down, endure, and rise again, you've won something. Maybe not comfort, but endurance. And in a world that punishes the weak, endurance is everything. You lie down again. The bed groans. You scratch your leg. You close your eyes. And you begin again. Tonight, the wind howls louder than usual. It presses against the thin wooden walls of your cottage like a hungry animal slipping through every crack, every seam, whispering across the floor and under the bed frame. You lie there in the dark, awake again, blanket pulled to your chin, one foot tucked beneath the other for warmth. The straw beneath you shifts with your breath. You can feel the cool air threading up through the mattress, as though the ground itself wants a piece of you. You try to sleep, but your body remembers too much. The bruised spot on your hip where the slats poke up. The sharp edge where a rusted nail tore a corner of the sack. The sweet, sour scent of mold blooming in the night. You turn just slightly, and the bed creaks in protest. Your spouse shifts beside you, murmuring something lost to sleep. A child whimpers softly from the other side of the room, then quiets again. You hold your breath, waiting to see if they'll cry out. They don't. Not this time. You exhale slowly. Quiet is rare. You don't want to disturb it. The moonlight seeps through the window, now casting faint silver shapes on the floor. You stare at them while your mind churns. You think about what tomorrow will bring: more labor, more cold, more aching muscles and sore feet. And another night, just like this one, waiting at the end of it. Another truce to broker with the same mattress that never quite forgives and never truly yields. You wonder what would happen if you just didn't lie down, if you stayed up, refused to crawl into this cradled misery. Would the bed miss you? Would it sink a little without your weight, sigh in disappointment, crave your shape? You almost laugh. The bed doesn't miss. It doesn't care. It's not alive. And yet it feels like it is, like something ancient and quiet and cruel breathing just beneath you. You try to shift your thoughts elsewhere. To the beds you've seen in the church, the painted tomb effigies of saints and noblemen lying in eternal slumber, chiseled in stone atop carved beds. No lice, no straw, no biting cold, just cold, unmoving peace. You wonder if that's the only time anyone ever truly rests once they're gone. But death doesn't sound restful when you've spent your life lying in something that mimics a coffin. The wooden slats, the immobility, the silence. You already know what it feels like. You've lived it for years. You're not in a rush to make it permanent. Instead, you shift again, trying to find a softer patch. You fold your hand beneath your cheek. The blanket slips from your shoulder. You tug it back. The flea bites on your wrist sting a little. You scratch them gently, then scratch harder. The itch is constant now. Even when the fleas aren't biting, your skin expects them. It's not just physical. It's trained into your nerves. The sensation of crawling that isn't really there. You remember once slapping your arm so hard in the night that it bruised. There was nothing there. The mind plays tricks. The bed teaches it how. It teaches your body to tense before the creak, to flinch before the cold. It makes you wake before pain finds you. It turns rest into anticipation, sleep into resistance. And it does it night after night, until you don't remember what it's like to lie down without preparing for war. And still you do it. Because what else is there? Even the nobles, you remind yourself, suffer. You overheard a traveling merchant once gossiping over ale, said he'd slept in a lord's manor and was eaten alive by bedbugs. He showed his arms red, blotchy, raw. The feather bed was soft, he said, but infested. The sheets had lace and embroidery, but no amount of stitching stopped the bites. And that made you feel something strange. Not joy, not spite, but kinship. Because at least suffering and sleep wasn't just yours. Even the fine beds were cursed. Even the velvet sheets held secrets. Even the rich dreamt of peace and woke in discomfort. That's the great joke, you suppose. The bed levels everyone eventually. Kings and beggars both wake scratching. Both pray for one good night. You lie back against your pillow, a flattened sack of straw stained hard as bark. Your head sinks into the groove your skull has shaped over time. The ceiling stares down warped wood crossing, like the ribs of some slumbering beast. You imagine the bed breathing again, not loudly, just barely. It waits. It always waits. And still, for all its punishment, you return to it. Every night. Without fail. Not because it's kind. Not because it's comfortable. But because it's yours. Because you know it. Because despite everything, it hasn't swallowed you yet. And you wonder, does that count as love or just survival? The night stretches on longer than it should. Sleep doesn't come. Or it does, in thin, glassy layers, shards of awareness broken by coughs, scratches, whispers, and the groaning of the mattress frame under your own exhausted weight. The straw rustles like dry leaves louder in the dark. The blanket itches worse than usual, or maybe your skin has just given up pretending not to feel it. Every time you begin to drift, something real or imagined pulls you back. And still you stay there. Still. Quiet. Resigned. Because getting up would mean facing the cold. The floor. The walls that leak wind. There's nowhere else to go, and even if there were, your body is too tired to seek it out. The bed, awful as it is, has claimed you again. Wrapped you in its choking familiarity. In the faintest edge of morning light, you watch the shape of your breath in the air. You're still alive. Your chest still moves. That counts for something. You glance over at your spouse, curled face hidden, and then at your children, still bundled beneath a sagging corner of the blanket. One of them twitches in their sleep. Another sighs. A faint snore. They've learned, too, how to lie still enough not to anger the mattress, how to shift without waking the bugs. It's a terrible thing to be proud of, and yet you are. This is a family that has learned how to survive a bed that wants nothing more than to break you down, inch by inch. You once thought of beds as the end of the day, as the place where the labor stops and peace begins. But in this life, the bed is where the hardest work happens. The work of keeping still, the work of suffering quietly, the work of dreaming carefully so the dreams don't remind you too much of what you'll never have. Still, sometimes the dreams come anyway. Last night you dreamed of a feather bed, a real one. You sank into it like warm water, soft and deep, and when you turned, it yielded like a living thing. The blanket smelled of lavender. There was no itch, no cold, no sound but your own breath. It was so foreign, it frightened you. You woke mid-dream, gripping the edge of your own sack-stuffed mattress, heart pounding, skin raw. Because even in sleep, your body knew this was too good, too impossible. Even dreams cannot give you a clean bed without consequence. So you go on each night a repetition, each morning a triumph, not of rest, but of endurance. The thought hits you sometimes you've spent nearly half your life lying here in this one spot, not resting, not recovering, just lying, surviving, slowly, quietly, the way a tree endures wind or a stone endures rain. Worn down, never broken, the bed will outlast you. Of that you're sure. It has already watched more lives pass than you can count. It will hold others after you're gone, your children perhaps, or strangers who move in when the house is empty. They will lie on this same frame. They will patch the sack with the same tired stitches. They will scratch the same bites, mutter the same prayers, sigh into the same moldy folds of cloth. And they will endure just as you did, because that's what beds are here. They are not furniture. They are not comforts. They are relics. Testaments to the quiet strength of people who were never given the luxury of softness. You stare at the ceiling a while longer, listening to the wind start to fade. The light outside begins to shift. Not sunrise yet, but near. The long, black stretch of night begins to break apart. You pull the blanket higher, even though it does little to help. You close your eyes, even though you know you won't sleep. And you whisper to the bed, because it's all you can do, just let me make it through one more night. And somehow you do again. And now, as our story settles and the world of moldy straw and sleepless nights begins to fade into the quiet of your room, take one last deep breath. Let the cold, damp corners of the medieval cottage drift further and further away. The wind against the stone walls, the creaking of the bed frame, the itch of flea bites under linen leave them behind. They belong to another time, another body, not yours. Right now in your own bed, whatever it's made of, wherever it rests. You are not lying in straw. You are not sharing your blanket with lice or pressing your back against a broken beam. You are still. You are safe. And even if today was hard, even if your body is sore or your thoughts won't quite settle, remember that the night is yours to rest. No nails sticking out from the frame. No biting wind under the door. No rats in the thatch. Just your breath. Just the hum of the room. The rhythm of your chest rising and falling. The soft hush of comfort. You made it through the darkness. Not just in the story, but here, now. And that counts. Let your muscles unclench. Let your hands soften. Let your eyes close if they haven't already. There's no mold in your blanket. No weasels in your ceiling. Only quiet. Only sleep. And if you do dream tonight, may it be gentle. May your bed be soft. And may the night finally truly give you rest.